This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Jeremy Wolf.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Wolf. Today, I'd like to welcome to the show another good neighbor, and this one has, I guess you could say, a special place in my heart. Anytime I have a local business owner on the show that has their business location in Cooper City, it's always a special occasion. And this one is actually in my Publix plaza that I go to all the time in Countryside Shops, and they deal with children, and I am all about furthering our future generations. And so I'm excited to sit down today and talk with James Blasdell. Get it right?
You got it right.
Yes, batting 100 already. James joins us. He is the owner of Code Ninjas, I know in Cooper City, and I believe also Weston, and we'll get into that in a little bit. James, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm pumped.
Yeah, man, it's our pleasure. And thanks, as always, to our listeners for tuning in to learn more about our great community and the businesses that serve us. So let's start from the top, James. For those out there that don't know, tell us a little bit about Code Ninjas.
So Code Ninjas, we in a nutshell, we teach kids how to code by building their own video games. So the key here is to leverage their interests, right, in channeling that interest into something that's going to be beneficial to them in the long term.
Yes.
Right.
A lot of things are going off in my head right now. I'm thinking about my own kids. Now they're big into Fortnite, and they're playing video games all the time. And I think it would be fantastic if they understood what went into the coding of this. So I want to dig into this a little more. What is a parent to expect if they were to bring their kid over to your location? Like, what does that look like? Walk us through, I guess, a first lesson at Code Ninjas, what that would look like for a family.
So the way it's very hard to explain. So the way we do it is we invite anybody to drop by and try out a class for free, right? So basically, you come with your ninja, with your child, and we have huge windows that look into the classroom, and that's intentional because it allows the parents, and most parents aren't that familiar with coding themselves, so it's easier for them to be able to visually see what's going on the screen while their kids are building their game. So they'll see the coding. It starts with block coding, very simple for the younger kids, and then we quickly move them into JavaScript, and they'll be in there for over a year before we transfer them to a different language. But that first time that they come in, we'll have one of our instructors sit down with the child and go over, first of all, what are the child's interests, right? If they're a soccer fan, then okay, let's build a video game that
makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And then, they'll build, a good example is, I don't know if you remember Pong, that old school game where you had the two sticks and the balls kind of.
I'm old enough to remember. Yes.
Right. So that's one of the first very, very easy games to code. So that'll be one of the first that we teach the kids. So something happens there where the child realizes, oh, okay, I don't just have to consume what's on the screen, right? I actually can be the author of what's going on. I can create the content, right? Whether it's a video game or, further down the road, we'll move them into different avenues, really, again, based on the child's interests. So, and I'm getting ahead of myself here, but, a good example is we start them with coding video games, and that goes in for our curriculum is 3 to 4 years long, depending on the child, and they progress at their own pace, which is the idea, because different kids, different ages, different interests, it's going to be very different from one child to the other. So the goal is not to fly through the curriculum. The goal is for it to really click and awaken that creativity within that child to see, okay, what else could I create, right? Whether it's a video game or a website, or getting into graphic design. There's plenty of software out there that they can sink their teeth into. Whether it's right now we have camps going on. There's Become a YouTuber camp, which
I love it.
which kids are going to be like all over, right? Oh yeah, I want to do that. I want to be. The second they're here, they realize, oh, it's not that comfortable to be in front of a camera, and what am I going to say? So it's another good example of leveraging their interest to quickly pivot into video editing, right? Or different platforms that the pros use to make the image look this certain way with their face in the corner, or whatever the case may be. So again, that's one example. We do 3D printing, we do robotics, we do a number of different things, which is a way to reinforce the coding. But really, the coding is the basis to creativity and what that's going to look for each individual child, if that makes sense. So that first time that they're going to come into our dojo, the parent is going to see the child in the room, interacting with the instructor, and they're going to be able to play the video game that their kid just created, right, out of the coding, and see the block coding. But from there, it grows into much more, right? Because we really want the parents to understand it's a critical point in our history, right? I mean, at this point, this is a brand new tool that we've created, and now with AI, even more so, to where how do we prepare the kids for the future work, right? How do we give our kids a leg up? My own children are come to the place, and that's how I got started, actually. But it's about teaching them to be more self-reliant, not to just believe everything they see because it's on the screen, right? To be more creative, to ask the right questions, to question things that they see, and what makes sense. Logic is at the base of coding, and that's really what we're teaching. It's the logic, how to think, how to maybe overcome a huge obstacle that might seem unsurmountable, but because of this coding brain, they understand already, okay, let's just cut it into smaller, manageable pieces and tackle them one at a time, and you're going to be able to overcome whatever life throws at you, right?
Yeah, we could use more logic in our society, I think.
Right, exactly. And it's very interesting that we don't teach that, at an early age.
I was going to say, yeah, like a lot of the guests that I have on the show that deal with children, they deal with it with subject matter that public schools just don't teach. And I think it's so important. I had a Judy Dempsey from Montessori School in Davie, Summit Cuesta Montessori, and we were talking about the public education system is lacking in so many ways, and they seem to check a lot of the other boxes at that school in terms of creativity and getting children to learn things. I don't know if they specifically do coding, but that idea is kind of part of their curriculum, like getting kids to think outside the box, and apply things that are meaningful to them. I think it's fantastic what you're doing. You mentioned that you got into this business because of your own children. Maybe you could kind of talk a little bit about the why behind how you do this, like how you got into this business and why you do what you do,
Yeah. So my son just this week, he turned 14. So now,
high school.
He's starting high school right now. He got a scholarship. Actually, I'm very proud of him. He got a scholarship for American Heritage. So he's
all that coding he's been doing, man.
He's been doing coding. But again, it's very interesting because, and I didn't think of this, but all the there's so many more benefits to coding than just the code that you're creating. He's become very, again, I've seen him overcome obstacles without, getting flustered, because he's kind of, again,
he's able to break things down into smaller components, manageable chunks,
so without freaking out. He's just, doing his own.
That's fantastic at 14, really. I still struggle with that at 44 years old, right? Like I get overwhelmed. I look at a project and I'm thinking like, I got to get to the end as quickly as possible. I have a hard time parsing it down into chunks, like you said.
Right. So that's definitely a benefit. Math is I mean, it's at the center of this, of coding and making things work. And then just the fact that you can't, because in school you have, all these other courses where even in math, even if you get the answer wrong, you could probably talk yourself into partial credit, right? Yeah. So, if you at least made sense and you can explain the steps that you took, okay, coding, I mean, the machine does not care about your feelings, right?
Yeah.
So you either did it right or you have to go through the code and debug it until it works. So it's very good in building resiliency in these kids, right? Because it's just not because it hurt their feelings or because they're getting annoyed or flustered. Is it going to work? I mean, it's plain and simple. You either did it right or you didn't. And long term, that is a huge benefit, especially in a future where things are going to be changing so fast that they're going to have to be able to continue chugging along and and being flexible enough to and adapting to changing situations. So yeah, that basically I got off topic, I think, but
No, you're
yeah,
good.
basically because of my son. Yeah, I used to be in banking, and I would see, it was we would sit at the table with business owners and look at different decisions and lending and what they were going to be doing for the next 5 years or whatever. And I would notice that at these meetings, it was usually, either the CEO or the owner, and they would typically have either an attorney with them for guidance or, an accountant. And then over the years, I noticed that formula kind of switched over to the IT guy, quote unquote, where it was really the person that knew how to get the correct information at lightning speed, right? While they, because this was a negotiation, right? So they
Yeah.
needed information at their fingertips. So these people, these key positions, and they didn't have titles for them. I'm talking early 2000s, they didn't have, like, their titles would change, but you could tell those are the guys that know the systems and where to get everything. And if there's something not working, and they would have the information readily available for the decision makers. And over the years, I would see those same people just climbing the corporate ladder. So for me, that was a sign. Yeah, I definitely need to get my then very young son into coding, which is how I ended up with Code Ninjas. We're actually, it's a franchise. We've got 400 locations throughout the country. We're also in Canada and Europe. And I personally own 5 of them down here. We've got Aventura, Cooper City, Weston, Boynton Beach, and Palm Beach, and up in Orlando in Lake Mary, we also have a location. So we've been growing pretty rapidly. But yeah, it all started because of my son, basically.
Where was your first location?
Aventura.
So Aventura. Okay,
Yeah.
So got into this. You started taking your son to another Code Ninjas location.
It was actually Cooper City. That was the very first one that opened in South Florida. Yeah.
Okay. So you took him here locally, opened up in Aventura, and have since been expanded. When did you first open in Aventura?
Right before COVID. Like we opened 2 months before that shopping center shut down because of COVID. Great timing.
Yeah, right. You made it through, obviously, and you're doing really well. Good for you, man. That's good stuff. What are one of the reasons we do this show, aside from giving a voice to local business owners to hear their story and hear about why they do what they do, is education. There's a lot of myths and misconceptions out there across various industries. What are some of the things that you run into with parents of children, or even the children themselves? I think we talked about some of that on the opening of the show. Some myths or misconceptions, things that you maybe can clear the air on, offer some perspective to folks out there that really don't know exactly what you do.
Well, I guess the first one is kids can learn to code as early as 5 years old. Okay. I mean, the way the world is right now, you really need to have a solid foundation for them, right? So you've got your traditional, school, and obviously none of those courses have lost any importance. But now you have, another leg to your stool where you're going to stand on, and that's coding. That's logic. And the trick is making it interesting and engaging for the kids. because it's especially for the younger ones. You better have different things to show them every single time they come through the doors. Otherwise, you lost them, because it's a lot to ask from them, right? And that's part of the reason why we also do 3D printing and robotics and other types of activities, so that they just continue being engaged. But I would say, get your children, whether with Code Ninjas or any other platform, um, get them started with coding and get them started early. And it's not an easy skill to learn, as many adults today are finding out right now. I
Yeah.
think most adults I speak with are aware of what's coming and what's already arrived in some industries with AI, and they're finding that it's not that easy to just, oh, okay, I'll just learn to code. It's like any other language. Like if you were to speak Spanish, um if you were to try and learn Spanish now as an adult, it's going to be harder than if you were exposed to it as a child, right? You see all these bilingual kids walking around, and you can't even tell, which language is their native tongue. That's what you want with coding. And once they have that, it's easy. It's so much easier for them to pick up different languages as time goes by, because the logic, the basic rules are going to be repeated throughout different languages. But yeah, absolutely. They in this world, and in the world 10 years from now, really is going to be so different. I mean, 60% of the jobs they're going to be competing for don't even exist yet.
Yeah.
We don't even know what those are going to be. So you need to really prepare them for that type of future, right? Screens. I understand parents are tired of kids being exposed to screens all the time, and I have the same fights at my home with my child being on the phone all the time, or the tablet. And it's not about the screen. The screens aren't going anywhere. If anything, there's going to be more screens, right?
Download them into our heads pretty soon.
Right. Yeah. So it's really about what is being done with that time, and how do you use it the right way. And again, having them understand that it's not just consuming it, but actually creating it, or um, figuring out how to change the world themselves, because that's going to be the generation to really do it.
Yeah. What a wonderful skill for kids to learn. I mean, it's so important, like you said, with what's coming with AI. I mean, shifts are going to be exponential. And this is the type of thing, as a child, I'm sure your son, 14, been doing coding for as long as he has. He's going to have such a marketable skill set at such an early age, right? To be able to go out there and offer this type of service and work with businesses to help them.
Yeah. And by the way, it's not just tech jobs that they're going to be, that's going to be beneficial for. My son is he's, and I don't know where he got it from, but he's adamant about wanting to be an attorney.
Interesting.
Which awesome, right? But then I think about it, what is that industry going to look like, by the time he's done with school? Let's say 10 years from now, how is technology impacting them? And I could, again, my background is in banking. I used to have an uncle that was also in banking, doing the same job that I ended up doing. And for him, back in the late 80s, early 90s, his job was, he was tied to his small community, right? And that was the book of business that he could manage, right? Because there wasn't internet yet. So how many businesses can you sit down and have a face-to-face meeting and shake hands, and that's as big as your portfolio is going to be, right?
Yeah.
Then I started early 2000s, late 90s, and then my portfolio was a lot bigger than his, not because I'm great or anything, but because the technology allowed me to have customers from anywhere in the world. Didn't matter, right? And the interesting thing is, back then the technology was already there, like Zoom and Zoom calls and all that. Technology has been there forever. It should have been more of a level playing field, globally, where it didn't matter where you were. You should be able to do business with anybody in the world for services, at least. And then after COVID, that's when people really were, you had to make the shift, because people were just they were against that change, right? And then COVID happened, and now everybody's comfortable with it, and now it's normal. Well, now we've got AI, and back then it was the information age, right? With Google and all that shift, now everybody has access to information, right? It was the information era. Well, now it's the intelligence era. So meaning everybody has access to intelligence, right? Or at least sounding intelligent. So
Yeah.
how can you tell what's real and what's just generated? And I mean, it's we've never been exposed to this before. So we need to prepare kids for a world where it's going to be increasingly hard to tell what's true and what's generated, uh, and being able to, again, with everybody being intelligent, it's not going to be enough to complete to get a degree in medicine or law.
Yeah, very
The
true.
companies are going to hire. The companies are going to be investing in AI. They already are. They're going to continue doing it. So 10 years from now, it's not going to be, okay, the best attorney from the best school, right, is going to get the job, right? Which, by the way, if a firm today needs 10 attorneys, right, in 10 years, 3 of them can be doing the workload of all of them because of the technology, right?
Yeah.
So those companies are going to be hiring not just the best attorneys, but the best attorneys that can best leverage their AI technology. So that's why it's so important to understand. It's not like we're not training kids to be in tech roles. We're training them to be able to be in any role that they want, but be the ones that are really going to get the most opportunities because of the way that they can leverage the technology of that day.
Very interesting perspective. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to ask you also, though, 5 locations opened right before COVID. Clearly, you're doing something right. There's a lot of business owners out there. Let's be honest, it's difficult being an entrepreneur running a business. What's the secret sauce for you? How are you able to get in there and start one location and then scale that up to 5 locations? And then what's the goal moving forward? Are you planning on opening additional locations? What does this look like for you in the future?
So it's been a bumpy ride. Again, we opened right before COVID at our first location. So it's been, there's been ups and downs for sure. At the moment, we're not looking to open more. We're looking to really increase the number of programs that we have at our existing locations. We keep getting asked questions about different things. Again, talking about AI, we're working on a new curriculum that focuses on AI specifically for kids. And then during that time, also we started a partnership, and we're the only company that has this type of platform. We created our platform in partnership with Microsoft. So it's, we're aligning ourselves with with industry leaders to come up with the best way to prepare these kids, right? So I would say that the secret sauce is really caring about number one, understanding the importance of this for our students in their futures, and putting in the work to keeping them engaged. Because at a local level, we already have the curriculum. That's done. It's in partnership with Microsoft. There's nothing else out in the industry like it, whether it's in person or online. I mean, not even close. So that side of it is the quote unquote easy side for us because it's already done. The real secret sauce is, how do we keep the kids engaged and motivated to continue coming and participating in this excruciing activity sometimes of coding, right? Because if you ask any coder, they're going to tell you they about 70% of the time they hate it, right? But then when the code works, it's the best feeling in the world, right?
Very rewarding. Yeah.
So that's the hard part when you're teaching kids, is they're not used to failing, right? In today's world, kids are not used to failing. I mean, there's you get rewards for participating now, which I can understand, but it does have some negative unwanted
Oh, yeah.
implications. But here, that's the difficulty is keeping them pushing forward, because this will change their lives. It will change their future. I mean, there's no question about it. But they have to tough it out. They have to be doing it for 3-4 years. By the time they're in high school, it's not even going to be a level playing field anymore. There's going to be those that have the coding skills and are going to be probably, I mean, I can't even understand how the school system is going to deal with that, because they're going to be ahead of their instructors in many
Yeah.
ways, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be an interesting challenge for the school system, for sure.
Yeah. Teaching children delayed gratification. And then also, I think you nailed it with the secret sauce, right? Keeping the children engaged in a way that keeps them coming back and learning more, and ultimately developing that framework to tackle difficult projects. And again, delayed gratification. So important what you're doing, man. Good stuff.
Right. I appreciate that. Yeah. And like my kids, my own children, I mean, they've done a number of extracurricular activities, right? They've done, soccer and dancing and what else? They've played in a piano, a number of things, and they're all important.
Yeah.
Now, do I expect them to, either one of them? I have a daughter also, and she's 8. I don't really expect them to, maybe getting a partial scholarship as a result of one of those skills. Maybe, right? There are other benefits to it, right? For sure. But what we're teaching is not extracurricular. This is an investment, because again, it's all about the time and history we're in. The huge differences in what parents need to understand. And again, a parent myself, you want to, do whatever you can to give them the best opportunities for the future, right?
Absolutely.
So if you think about it, everybody, us, our parents, our grandparents, we've all been, expected to excel at school, especially in math and reading and writing, and that's obviously that's still important. But you have the whole planet competing in those areas, right? That's already like it's not news. If you're a solid coder by the time you're in high school, I mean, you win.
Huge leg up there.
You won. I don't know where you go from there, but whatever it is,
yeah.
I mean, people are going to want you to work with them or go to their school, period, for whatever field you're in. So parents, and that's part of my interest from the beginning, was I could see it clear as day. Now, parents see it. I never have a parent come and where I'm talking with them and they're like shaking their head. No, like, what are you talking about? This is important. Everybody agrees. They can sense it, right? Even if they're not really in the coding world or tech world. But there's this time that needs to pass to where they actually start doing something about it. And like anything else, if you're preparing your kids before everybody else on what's going to be important, then there's no competition for them, period.
I wanted to ask you a question about AI and coding. I'm just curious. How does that fit into coding? How is AI being integrated in coding? Do they have AI programs now or AI software that's actually, I'd imagine they do, that's actually generating code for these types of things? And how does that fit in with what you're doing at your locations?
So it's, well, 2 different ways, right? So we're teaching AI here more as a way to understand the magic, right? Because what's science? It's magic that works, right?
Yeah.
So again, we want to demystify everything that they're seeing and understanding how it works. Like they could get this to work. Children could get a very basic AI system to work. And once they understand that, then the magic is out. And if they're interested in it, they can really dig in and start doing some very interesting things and definitely are going to be able to get some very good jobs in the coming years, right? Because that industry is going to explode. As far as AI creating the code, it's like, I don't know if you use any ChatGPT or any of these,
Sure.
right? But if anybody that has used it, you will realize quickly, like, it sounds great, but if you're going to put your name to it, you better read it carefully, comb through it, confirm that the information is correct,
Yeah.
and confirm that, it sounds like you. Like, do you want it to sound like you? Then you need to massage it. It's a great way to start ideas, I found, because if I'm going down this route, maybe it mentions something that, I do like that as a concept, and then I start working towards massaging the article that way. Or but it definitely needs the human touch, especially if it's coming out of you or your business, right? So
yeah, it's like a collaboration. It's a collaboration, right, between
it's
the
a
AI
tool.
and the human.
It's like any other tool. It's going to help you get there quicker. It might bring up some good ideas, but it's not gonna. You're never gonna just put in the prompt and just send it out, and I'm sure it got it right, because it might say something that's so outrageous that it's laughable, right? So with coding, it's the same thing. It's going to be able to do the heavy lifting for you, but you still need the human to really understand why that website doesn't look the way that you wanted it to, right? And how is somebody that doesn't know how to code going to be able to ask for that prompt? Because that's the other thing. If you look at Midjourney or those AI, the ones that have those cool drawings and pictures, and if you have a specific idea of what you wanted to draw, try reading those prompts. It hurts your brain. I'm telling you, it's got wording that colors and wording that I haven't. I need to Google the meaning for half of these things. It's English, but it's such weird language that you need to use to really be able to describe, in detail, an image, right? So think about that in coding. Like, if you don't know the language, good luck getting it to do, whatever you're coding. It's not going to look or feel or do what you want it to do because of your prompt. You need to, number one, know what you're asking for as a coder, right? Know what's possible within the realms, right, of what you're trying to do, and then, more importantly, go over it and then make it your own, just like an email that you're writing, right? What do you want to tweak? What do you want to change? If something doesn't look a certain way, it's going to be easier for you to just write that part of the code rather than come up with some crazy way of asking the AI of doing it for you, if that makes sense. So again, like anything else, it's the tools are going to make us more productive, but it's those of us that know how to leverage it that are really going to benefit.
Absolutely, man. How can our listeners learn more? For anyone out there that has their kids that would like to come in and get one of those free classes that you talked about to learn a little bit more about what you do, what's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
For Cooper City, or give us a call. The number's 954-323-4555. We're at the Countryside Shops, right on Flamingo, or just drop by. We're open from 3:30 to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, Saturdays from 10 to 3 p.m. If you're ever in the area and you don't have an appointment, just drop by, say hi, and we'll get something going so that your child can try building the first video game right there on the spot.
Wonderful. We will, of course, drop a link in the description below to all of your contact information. James Blasdell, doing great things for our community and really beyond. It's a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for joining us, brother.
Thank you. One last thing. I actually started tried starting a podcast too with my son. It's called the Coding Family Connection. So it kind of talks about the benefits of kids learning to code. So yeah, if anybody wants to get more information on that side, please check us out.
Hear that, everyone? The Coding Connection. I got my little doggy barking in the background. That's okay. We love him to death. All right, man. Pleasure. Have a wonderful day. It was great getting the opportunity to meet you. Thanks, as always, to our listeners for tuning in. We will catch you all next time, next episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast, Cooper City. To nominate your favorite local business to be featured on the show, go to gnpcoopercity.com. That's gnpcoopercity.com, or call 954-231-3170.